I do believe because there are no delivery certificates.
I grew up as an only child, which everyone who grew up around me knows. I would have loved to have had siblings. That's why I'm so excited to be pregnant, so that Archie has someone.
This crisis won't die down until the irrefutable truth comes out. Like, why lie? It was just so truly bizarre.
If you had those things, it would be very easy just to put them out there and say, this is what happened. You know, this is what it is. So all of the pictures, my point is, out there were inconsistent with the idea of a real pregnancy. In my opinion, she would still be a waitress if it wasn't for Dad. And there's a very big difference. It was deliberate. When she said, I lost my father, we knew that she didn't lose our dad. She iced our father. And I thought, what is she not contextually aware? She's trying to hide something. This is really sloppy pool.
This scandal comes as no surprise. Speculation about the children has been simmering for years.
Silence everybody and just produce a DNA sample.
People think her kids are fake. They think they're AI.
I'll tell you why. What she told the royal family, what she told Harry, wouldn't have jived, wouldn't have been consistent with the truth.
What if the Meghan Markle we've all come to know isn't the full picture at all? For years, she's been presented as the glamorous outsider who broke into the royal family, the strong duchess who stood tall against tradition, and the doting mother who created a picture-perfect family. But what if that story, the one polished in glossy magazines, Netflix specials, and headline-grabbing interviews, wasn't completely real? What if it was carefully staged from the very beginning? That's the bombshell suggestion now exploding across headlines, thanks to none other than Meghan's half-sister, Samantha Markle. And this time, Samantha isn't hinting quietly in the background. She's coming forward with claims so bold. They cut right to the heart of Meghan's most personal stories, from her childhood to her family ties, and even her role as a mother. Viewers might remember Meghan once said she grew up as an only child, longing for siblings she never had. It was a sympathetic line, one that made audiences feel closer to her. But Samantha says that wasn't just misleading, it was flat-out fiction. And when someone in your own family calls you out that directly, it doesn't just sting. It makes the world stop and ask, if that detail was fabricated, what else was part of the performance? This is why Samantha's words have exploded into a full-blown storm. They don't sound like petty family drama anymore. They sound like the start of a bigger unraveling, one that Meghan and Harry may no longer be able to silence. And if what Samantha is saying gains traction, it could change how the world views Meghan forever. Samantha Markle has never been afraid to speak out, but this time, she's sharper than ever. Instead of throwing vague jabs at her sister, she's zeroing in on the very foundation of Meghan's public image. And the first strike? Meghan's childhood. For years, Meghan painted herself as someone who grew up isolated, the only child of a hardworking father and a distant mother. It was a story that helped her connect with fans, painting her as someone who rose above loneliness to create her own fairy tale ending. But according to Samantha, that story was nothing more than a rewritten script. She insists Meghan did have siblings, and she knew it. Samantha even argues that Meghan deliberately erased her family from her life to build a cleaner, more sympathetic narrative, and it doesn't stop there. Samantha accuses Meghan of exaggerating her struggles, suggesting that if it weren't for their father's support and connections, Meghan wouldn't have gone from waiting tables to Hollywood roles. In her words, Meghan's success wasn't built on grit alone, it was built on a carefully edited version of the truth. But perhaps the boldest part of Samantha's claims is what she says Meghan did next. By presenting herself as an outsider who climbed into royalty on her own terms, Meghan positioned herself as the modern face of the monarchy. Yet Samantha says that image wasn't authentic at all, it was performance. A role Meghan slipped into just as easily as she once slipped into characters on set, and the cracks in that performance, they're starting to show. Because once someone from your own family flips the narrative, it's no longer just gossip. It becomes a question of credibility. If Samantha's words about Meghan's childhood were shocking, her next claims cut even deeper, straight into Meghan's role as a mother. And this is where things went from uncomfortable family drama to a full-blown scandal. Samantha argues that Meghan's carefully staged image as a glowing mom was less about reality and more about optics. Every cradled baby bump, every tightly controlled photo release, every layer of secrecy around Archie and Lilibet's births, Samantha says it was all part of the act. In her view, Meghan wasn't just shaping her public identity, she was actively rewriting how motherhood itself was presented to the world. Royal watchers had already noticed the unusual way Meghan handled her pregnancies compared to tradition. No iconic hospital steps like Diana or Kate, no immediate press briefings, and a timeline that never seemed to add up. To the palace, it may have looked like privacy, but to Samantha, and to growing numbers of critics, it looked like something else entirely, a carefully engineered illusion. And that's where the fire really caught. Because if even a fraction of what Samantha suggests is true, it doesn't just raise questions about Meghan as a public figure. It challenges her integrity as a mother, as a royal, and as someone who built her platform on authenticity. For Meghan, this is the kind of accusation that doesn't fade quietly, it lingers, festers, and forces people to re-examine everything they thought what they knew about her. The moment Samantha's words hit the headlines, the internet lit up. Rumors that had once lived in the corners of tabloids suddenly felt more believable. People dug up old clips, compared timelines, and replayed Meghan's interviews with new suspicion. And instead of addressing it head-on, Meghan and Harry did something that only poured gasoline on the fire. They stayed silent. In the royal world, silence is usually meant to project dignity. But in the court of public opinion, silence often screams one thing: suspicion. Viewers and critics alike began asking the obvious question: if Meghan has nothing to hide, why not put the speculation to rest once and for all? A simple denial, a straightforward explanation, even the kind of transparency Princess Diana and Kate Middleton once showed could have shut this down in minutes. But none of that happened, and the more days that passed, the worse it got. Online forums exploded with theories, pointing to everything from Meghan's unusual public appearances to the tightly controlled release of royal baby photos. What once looked like a demand for privacy began to look like evasion. For Meghan and Harry, silence was supposed to protect their image. Instead, backfired, leaving critics to write the narrative for them. And the longer the silence dragged on, the louder Samantha's accusations began to sound. What started as whispers of family drama quickly snowballed into something far more dangerous, a potential crisis for the monarchy itself. Royal births aren't just personal milestones. They're public events steeped in centuries of tradition. Diana walked out of St. Mary's Hospital with newborn William in her arms. Kate Middleton did the same, 3 times over. These moments weren't just photo ops, they were proof, reassurance that the line of succession was secure and legitimate. But Meghan broke from every one of those traditions. No hospital steps, no clear confirmation of where the births took place, no transparency about royal doctors being present. For the public, it looked unusual. For critics, it looked suspicious. And for the monarchy, it raised a chilling question. If Meghan's story doesn't add up, what does that mean for the legitimacy of Archie and Lilibet in the royal bloodline? This isn't just about gossip anymore. Succession laws are strict, built on absolute clarity. Heirs to the throne must be born in ways that leave no room for doubt. And when secrecy surrounds a royal birth, that secrecy becomes a threat not just to reputation, but to the very foundation of the crown. That's why Samantha's claims hit harder than a sibling feud. They cut into the heart of royal stability. If even a fraction of what's being suggested is true, it's not Meghan's image on the line, it's the monarchy itself. As Samantha's accusations spread, the Sussex legal team sprang into action. Letters were sent. Warnings flew to media outlets. Threats were made to anyone who dared amplify the story. On paper, it looks like swift action. But here's the twist. No actual denial ever came. Not a single statement from Meghan or Harry saying, "This is false. Here's the truth." And that's what made the silence so explosive. Threats can intimidate newspapers, but they can't stop the internet. They can't stop social media. And they certainly can't stop speculation. Every day that passed without clarity, the public suspicion grew. What was meant to protect their reputation ended up doing the opposite. It magnified Samantha's narrative. Critics argue that in trying to control the story through fear, Meghan and Harry inadvertently validated it. The couple who built their brand on transparency and speaking their truth now appeared evasive, leaving fans and skeptics alike to fill in the blanks. And in scandals like this, what isn't said often carries more weight than what is. Silence became the loudest statement of all, and in this case, it might be louder than any interview, any documentary, or any polished photo ever could be. The longer Samantha's claims circulated, the more public perception began to shift. Polls and social media sentiment showed cracks forming in Meghan and Harry's once unshakable brand. People started questioning everything from Meghan's childhood stories to her role as a mother and even the carefully curated royal appearances. What was once seen as empowerment or authenticity now started to read as performance. Every staged smile, every controlled interview, every scripted moment of truth-telling came under scrutiny. And as whispers turned into headlines, the pressure mounted. Meghan and Harry were no longer just facing criticism from tabloids. They were facing a court of public opinion that seemed increasingly willing to believe Samantha over the narrative the Sussexes built themselves. Even allies and insiders reportedly noticed the tension. Sources describe Harry and Meghan struggling to hold the brand together while their credibility eroded. Samantha's accusations weren't just prying open old wounds, they were rewriting the story entirely, shifting the spotlight from royal achievements to questions of deception and illusion. The once powerful image of Meghan as a trailblazer, a rebel duchess, and a devoted mother now hung in the balance. Every unanswered question, every delayed response, only made the public more suspicious and the narrative harder to control. So where does this leave Meghan Markle? Samantha's accusations cut deep, and the public is left asking questions that remain unanswered. Silence has become louder than any denial, and every day that passes without clarity only fuels suspicion. The carefully polished fairy tale Meghan tried to control now seems fragile, and the narrative she built is under siege. But the story doesn't end here. Sources hint that more revelations could be on the horizon, claims from insiders, undisclosed documents, and even investigative reporting that might push the drama further. Meghan and Harry's empire of truth and authenticity faces a test unlike any before. Can it survive the storm, or is this the beginning of a collapse that no Netflix deal can fix? For viewers, the takeaway is clear. The questions keep piling up, and the answers are still still out there, waiting to be revealed. And as the world watches, one thing is certain: this chapter of the Sussex saga is far from over, and the next twist could shock even the most dedicated royal watchers.